There is a power for good in the universe, greater than you are, and you can use it to change your thinking and change your life. Now, Mr. Robert Stack.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Robert Stack, inviting you to be part of a most exciting program, How to Change Your Life. You'll be hearing from celebrities, people just like you, who've changed their lives by changing their thinking. This program's a tribute to Dr. Ernest S. Holmes, the man who began the whole philosophy of science of mind. I'm one of the few who remembers Dr. Holmes very well. He was a very close friend of my family's. I can remember he'd come by, and into the wee hours of the night, he and Mother would discuss the philosophy of science of mind. And it certainly worked for me. I can think of two traumatic instances, one in particular when, in the shooting of the Untouchables, I hemorrhaged a vocal cord. I couldn't speak. It's pretty hard to imagine an actor who can't speak. I used to have nightmares where I'd see myself on stage with a blackboard writing out the words. And I pulled myself around, and eventually it did come back. I had a terrible motorcycle accident, had my face half torn off, thought I'd be crippled for life. I didn't. I applied the philosophy, it worked for me. And now I'd like to turn you over to our hostess of this exciting program, Miss Renee Winters.
Thank you, Bob. You know, today is the first day of the rest of your life, and if you don't like your life, you can change it. As this program unfolds, some of you might say to yourself that it sounds good, but it's impossible for me. You don't know my particular situation. It's different. I can't do it. I can't change my life. Well, during the next hour, you're going to meet people who have said, I can, instead of I can't. You'll meet famous celebrities and people just like you who have changed their lives, who have found a better way of living each and every day thanks to the teachings and the philosophy of Dr. Ernest Holmes. Oh, by the way, from time to time, you'll notice that a telephone number, 800-421-9600, will be appearing on your television screen. This is your helpline number. If you have an immediate problem, don't hesitate to call at any time, day or night, and give your problem to our professionals who are trained to help you. Born above a country store in Hillsborough, Tennessee, this could have been the beginning and the end of Calvin Lehew's story. However, 16 years ago, his world turned completely around when he discovered the philosophy of Dr. Ernest Holmes in a Science of Mind magazine. A millionaire at the age of 35, meet Mr. Success, Calvin Lehew.
As a teenager, I was unhappy with my life. I wasn't satisfied. And I wanted to know what makes people successful. One night I heard Dr. Norman Vincent Teel tell about the power of positive thinking, and that started me on my search of what makes people successful. A little bit later, I heard a tape by Earl Nightingale called The Strangest Secret, and in that tape, he told me that I could be anything that I wanted, that I could set a goal, write it down, and earn this. Well, I wanted money. That was the biggest thing. So I figured pick out a big goal and test this philosophy. I decided that I wanted to be a millionaire by age 35. The day I graduated from college, a fraternity brother of mine and I took off down to Tallahassee, Florida. And we tried to open up a restaurant, but we didn't have any money. Therefore, we decided we'd open up a discount drugstore. Now, I don't know why a discount drugstore, but it just came to us. This will earn us some money. Later on, I found out why I did this, the subconscious mind working. But he and I opened our first drugstore, and we decided we would discount every item every day at least 20%. See, the unusual thing about this had not been done. And I later found out also that I put into practice at this time a law that when you give out, you receive. That was one of my first discoveries. I had taken psychology in college, and it became fascinating to me. I want to know what makes people tick, what makes people do the things they do. Our drugstore was an overnight success. We opened more then. I was on my way to success, as I defined it then, money. And then along the way too, I found out some other things that interested me. We had in the pharmaceutical counter back there, I found out that they were giving to some people nothing but powdered sugar, placebos. And I went back and I told Tony, you know, this doesn't seem right. We're charging people $6 for something that only cost us 20 cents. But he told me, he said, you know, they wouldn't value it if we only charged them our regular markup. And that was a lesson to me. In the mind, it was doing some good. Well, it came to me here again that to earn this money, real estate would be the answer. So I sold out to my partner, came home to Tennessee, and talked my brother-in-law into opening up a construction business. And then I was accumulating this. I was in the Tennessee Air National Guard. I was on the way to Japan. I happened to stop off in California, and I saw a magazine called Science of Mind, and this got my attention. I read that on the plane going to Japan, and it was fascinating. This seemed to be something I was searching for. This was talking my language. I really could identify with it, especially since I saw that I was reaching my goal. I thought, my gosh, you know, this stuff really works. One day, I realized that I was reaching my goal. And as I say, nothing happened. I was disappointed. I had reached my goal before I was 35. I reached it when I was 33. And the most disappointing thing was, after I had the wealth, I wasn't any happier. This was a disillusionment to me. So I knew that the principles worked. I thought, well, I'll try it on something else. Maybe that will make me happy. I wanted recognition. I became president of the Chamber of Commerce, chairman of the zoning board, the housing authority. I was on 14 board of directorships at one time. They made me man of the year. I was an executive director of the bank. I was Mr. Big. And you know what? That didn't help me either. So, continually to reading the Science of Mind and Dr. Holmes' philosophy, I realized that my life was not balanced in the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. I like to say the tripod of life. The greatest thing of all that has come to me about this philosophy is that I am totally responsible for myself. See, I used to think the government did it to me. I used to think the teachers did it to me. But now I know that I am responsible, and you can too, in your thinking. Change your thinking and then change your life.
Superstar Carol Burnett has made the life story of our next guest into a feature motion picture. Ladies and gentlemen, B. Jorgensen, the director of Friendly House.
I'm an old Texas gal that I came out from Texas when I was 19. My life was over as far as I was concerned because I had never done anything right. The first year I won a scholarship from this little town where I was raised, and I was expelled because I went out with my boyfriend and took my first drink. Now this wouldn't be very much, but in those days that was quite a disgrace. And my father was deacon in the Baptist church and president of the school board and mayor of the town, and he was quite disappointed in me. And he sent me out here to my older sister, and then I started on the merry-go-round. And I knew that my life was going to be unsuccessful, and I didn't care. I just thought that I am a failure, and that is it. So I started drinking very heavily. I married a man in the motion picture business that passed away years later. And I drank all the time. I landed in sanitariums, in psycho wards, strapped down in psycho wards. I went to what we call the end of the line in alcoholism. And by that time, the worst cop-out in the world is I just don't give a darn. I just don't care because I have never been a success, and I never will be. So I continued my drinking until I went to the end of the line. And then my sister in Texas wrote me about a program that really worked with 12 steps. And I finally, when I had my last blackout drunk and had a hit-and-run accident, I finally hit the end of the line, and I came to this program, and I have been on it for over 34 years. But when I started Friendly House in 1951, and then I came here in 61 to be the director. And I thought I was doing a great job, and nothing was working out right. I began to have ailments and pains, and I made many mistakes. I had a bad marriage that was not right for me, and many things happened. And so I finally knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I was not a happy person. I was sober. I was on the program, but I was playing God. I was like a dictator to the girls here in the house, and I thought, well, because I did things for them, that they should do things for me, and they should all stay sober. Well, that isn't the way it works at all. And I met my dear husband. We've been married 10 years now, and Dr. Hornaday married us in the Science of Mind Church. And he took me to church. I had arthritis very badly in my right leg. I could hardly walk, but I didn't want him to know that because we were romancing, and I didn't want him to know that I had any physical ailments. And so I kept it to myself. I finally wrote a letter to Dr. Hornaday, and he read it one day in church from the podium. He read the letter. And my arthritis started to go away, and I started to believe, and my entire attitude changed. I felt like a different person. I didn't feel all tense all over. I didn't feel like that everything I did was wrong. And one of my dear friends had told me that I was trying to play God to everybody in the house, and I didn't realize that. And I would tell everybody that I was happy, but I was not really happy. I was making many mistakes that I don't have time to tell you about in AA. Oh, I said it. Well, that's all right. But anyway, I went ahead, and we went religiously every Wednesday night and every Sunday. And I began to study the Science of Mind book. And you know, the first article that we had ever had written ever about Friendly House was in the Science of Mind book, way back in 1954, I think it was. And it looks like I'm going to have another one written soon, which is quite a privilege. Many miracles have happened, complete miracles, since my attitude changed, since the true love in my heart that I really mean for everyone. I don't have to try to love people. I love you, and that's just all there is to it. I mean, I don't have to pretend. I just do. And the principles that I have learned in religious science are too numerous to mention. It's a study that makes so much sense. It means that we can have self-discovery if we want to be discovered. If we want this, we have to want this, really want it. And I want it more than anything in the world. And I have been just like a different person since the last 10 years since I've been married and since we've been going every weekly to church. It's something that will work for everybody because everyone can't be alcoholic. And our program works for us. But people that do not have this problem, they need a program that will work for them, something that they can grow and do great things in this world. They just made my picture with Carol Burnett, part of my life, and I think that's almost like a dream. I can't believe it. But my life has so changed that if I can say anything at all today, believe me, you can do it too. Thank you very much.
Hello there. Thank you for watching this Science of Mind TV special. Isn't it exciting to know that there really are ways to transform your life, that you really can do something about having more prosperity, health, happiness, and joy in all dimensions of your life. We're so excited you're exploring these. We know you wouldn't be watching this program if you weren't interested in really renovating things for yourself. It was in 1927 that our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, created this magazine, The Science of Mind. And in it, he included the ideas that we're telling you about. Positive thinking, transforming your inner attitudes, changing your consciousness, affirmative prayer, those kinds of ideas for people to use in changing their life. Now, since then, Science of Mind Publications has created over 100 other publications to share with you these kinds of ideas. Now, that may seem an imposing amount of literature to read. We want you to know that we have created for you and for this program this powerful book entitled How to Change Your Life. In this book, you will find all of the ideas crystallized, the fundamental ways that you can change your life, change your thinking, and really see results. This book is wonderful. In it, you'll learn about affirmative prayer, you'll learn about the power of attitudes, you'll learn about how you can practice techniques day by day, moment by moment, that will show results in your life. This is one of the finest self-help books ever written. We want you to have it. Along with that, we will send you a cassette tape, a 60-minute cassette tape introducing you to the Science of Mind and also containing a recorded message by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. What wonderful values these are. This book is selling in bookstores for $12.95. The tape, $7.95. Almost a $25 value. They're yours for the asking. All that we ask of you is that you share with us a $10 gift or more so that we can reach more people, touch their lives, touch their hearts with the Science of Mind and these books. So for $10, we'll send them to you. If you're not totally pleased, then we'll refund your money cheerfully, and we mean it. It's your life. You can change it. We have the ideas ready for you. Call the number on your screen. There are people ready to help you. Thank you.
To get this inspirational, life-changing package on its way to you, call now toll-free 1-800-453-8500. That's 1-800-453-8500. Operators are standing by to take your call. So call now toll-free 1-800-453-8500. Your money will be cheerfully refunded if you're not completely satisfied.
Our next guest served as a crew chief on B-47 bombers. He's worked for NASA on the Apollo spacecraft, designed equipment for America's first missile-carrying submarines. He's been a restaurant and hotel owner, a publisher, a marketing executive, and has lived one of the most remarkable stories you will ever hear. Meet a man for all seasons, Mr. Tom Stansbury, and his beautiful wife, Sasha, who just happens to be an Italian baroness.
Renee, my story is somewhat confidential and private, and I've kept it to myself very quietly for many, many years. However, I feel that if there is one person out there, one single person who might feel at ease, or it might ease or change their thoughts in their life about positive thinking, I would like to relate this story now. Some years ago, I was stricken with cancer and taken to the hospital and became very seriously ill.
Actually, it was quite bad because I was talking to the doctor of yours, and he mentioned that you had about 25% chance to stay alive for 3 months.
I had just come off of the major surgery, and I had refused to have the bag put in the side of my stomach. I don't know, they call it a colostomy, or there's a technical term or a medical term that fits that. And I had just said, remove the tumor as close as you can, but no bag, because that's something that I personally didn't feel I could live with. Several days or a week passed, and they removed all of the stomach pumps and put in the, started to put me on actual feeding, which my first contact again with food was about, I think about a sixth of an ounce of water. And I drank the water, and I went into a relapse. While I was in the hospital, I was unfortunate enough to be in a room and on the 7th floor of UCLA, the cancer ward. And one of the things that I noticed when I was there was the constant appearance and disappearance of people from my room. And these people were taken, when they had reached a certain state, they were taken into what they call like a blue room, or what we on the floor referred to as the dying room. And everybody knew where that room was. Even though you hadn't seen it, you knew what it was, you'd heard the description, and you felt what it was. Well, that morning when I woke up, at 3:06 in the morning, I woke up and I realized I was in a different room. I was in a place where I hadn't been in the hospital, and it suddenly dawned on me there was nobody else there, and that's where I was. I was in this so-called room, this dying room. And I was very weak, and I had realized that for the first time that all of this was no longer a game. This was serious. This was where it was. And I somehow got myself to get up on the side of the bed, and I don't know if I sat there for a minute or an hour, but I realized that if I could move all the tables around and reconfigure all of the tubes and bottles that they had going in and out of me and put them on these traveling gurneys, that I could get up and walk out of that room and into the hallway. And about 5:45 in the morning, I finally made it out into the hallway. And I began to walk the hallway, and I guess I walked it twice before the nurses even realized what I was doing or where I was. And of course, they came up rushing up to me and asking me to get back into the bed, get back into that room. And the room, the fear, the thought that my future wife was going to be there in a few more minutes to see me like she did every morning,
All day long.
The whole thing put a new charge of energy into my mind. It gave me a very, very strong, positive feeling about getting out of the condition that I was in and getting into a new condition. And later, after they had put me back in my original room, Dr. Damas, who is probably one of the finest cancer doctors in the world from UCLA Medical Center, told me that the change in my attitude, the change in my mind, that positive, sudden energy that I had, and the fact that I knew for that moment on that I was going to be better, actually changed my whole concept of the disease that I had and the concept that I would possibly die.
I never believed in it anyway that you would pass away.
Well, my wife's...
Because I'm a great believer of the mind, what is in your mind, the belief, what is so important.
I do believe that there's a message for everyone, that there is a positive future for anyone if they can set their mind at ease by believing in themselves and the goals that they wish to attain.
Fame, even if you win it, it comes and goes in a minute. Where is the real stuff in life? I mean something you can cling to.
That beautiful voice belongs to one of the finest singers of all time. Here's Della Reese with her amazing true story.
Hello there, my name is Della Reese, and this is some of the reason why. This is not all of the reason why, but this is as much as I have to tell you of the reason why this works for me. On the 3rd day of October in 1979, I was doing the Johnny Carson show, which is a show that I've been doing since it was the Jack Parr show. So I feel very at home there, and I don't really feel I'm tense and tight to go there. So this particular night, I was going to do that show, and I picked up my gown and my shoes, and I hollered back to my daughter, try to fix something to eat because I'm going to do Johnny's show, and it's your turn in the kitchen, and I'm going to be hungry when I come home. And I left, and I went to do the show, and I sang my first number. I was feeling wonderful. I had been working. I'd been on tour. I worked for Campbell Soup, and I had been on tour for them, a very hectic tour, and I was going to get a chance to come home and sit and enjoy the beauty here. So I was feeling very good, and Johnny Carson was my last job before that happened. And I went in to do the show. I had my rehearsal. I sang the first song. Dickie Dawson was there. Johnny wasn't there that night either. And Richard Dawson and I have been friends for a long time, and so we had a lot to talk about. And he asked me after we had finished talking, would I sing my second song? And I said, yes, I would. And I got up to sing that second song. And it was a song that I sang, the introduction was, and the first chorus was with just a bass fiddle. And the bassist was wonderful, and we began to sing and play. And I sang about 4 bars, and I hit the flattest note I've ever sung in my life, and I fell to my knees. I don't remember very much after that. They took me across the street to an emergency hospital, and they discovered that I had neither had a stroke nor had I had a heart attack. And it was at night, and they felt that maybe I should go someplace else. So they took me to another hospital, and at that hospital, they tell me they worked over me night and day, and they tell me that they told my daughter and my son and all of my family that to prepare themselves, I would be dead before the dawn. But it came the dawn, and I was not dead. And then they said to me that I had had an aneurysm to rupture. I didn't know what that word meant. They took me and gave me an arteriogram, and they decided that they should check the x-rays with UCLA. And they took them to UCLA, and the man looked at the x-rays, and he said, well, these are wonderful x-rays, and if you don't think you can operate from these, may I suggest that there's a man in Zurich, and there is another doctor in London, Ontario. Now, we would suggest that you'd use London, Ontario, because it's 14 hours flying to Zurich. And they had been feeding me intravenously, I can't remember the name of it now, but some kind of medication to keep my blood from overflowing my brain. And they would have to now do this orally because I was not going on a hospital plane. So they said 5 hours is better chance to take than 14 hours since there's going to be no physician with her and she's simply going with her family. And so they took me to London, Ontario, to a Dr. Charles Drake. My spiritual leader, who is the Reverend Johnny Coleman, kept helping me to affirm and kept helping me to deny and kept helping me to keep myself in absolute open channel for my source. When I arrived in London, Ontario, it was 11:30 at night. I didn't know it at that time, but 11 o'clock in the day, there was a clip that Dr. Drake had designed. And he had not been satisfied with that clip, and he had sent it to Japan. And he had been waiting on it for 2 weeks. I had been in this dark room for 2 weeks. The clip arrived at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I arrived at 11 o'clock at night. We were united, the clip and I, at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was perfect because I am not blind, I am not crippled, and I'm no crazier than I was before the aneurysm erupted. If I do not show you now where the scars are, you won't be able to find them. It's completely gone. It's impossible for me to be saying to you that these things happened, but it was possible because I and the Father are one, and I wanted you to know that.
And now, a final word from Mr. Robert Stack.
I suppose one of the high points of my life is when Dr. Holmes christened our children. He christened my daughter Elizabeth, and then shortly thereafter, about a year and a half later, he christened my son Charlie. And when he christened Charlie, I can remember Charlie was crying. He was in a dress which he didn't want to be in the first place. And Ernest picked him up and looked at him, and he stopped crying. And he spoke to him, not as you would speak to a child. He spoke to him as you speak to a spirit, to a soul, an ageless spirit. And he spoke to him, and if I had a recording of that, I tell you, I wouldn't take $1 million for it. His communication with that infant taught me more about him than anything he could have possibly done. He was a special man.
Thank you for being with us for this special program, How to Change Your Life by Changing Your Thinking. Remember, there is a power for good in the universe, greater than you are, and you can use it. Don't forget our special offer. Call now, 1-800-453-8500. That's 1-800-453-8500. You'll be glad you did.